Hi, my name is Mariah Rossell, and I am a psychedelic integration counselor. Today, in our Introduction to Psychedelic course, I wanted to talk to you about intention setting. So before doing anything new, I believe that intention setting is really important. So why is it that you choose to embark on this journey? And particularly, why right now? Because sometimes we choose to do things, but they're not right now. They're right at some other point in our life, but at this exact moment, they're actually not in our highest good. So the question here is, why do you want to do it right now? And don't take this as judgmental, but what is your desire? What would you like to get out of this experience? And for me, one of my favorite ways of goal setting is to journal. And I believe in the inner healer and the higher mind that will really just give you that answer. So one of my favorite techniques is to sit down with a journal, open it up to a blank page, grab a pen. I like blue because it's the color of the throat chakra, so you're really allowing your voice to flow through. And then ask the question at the top of the page. Write down, what is my desired outcome of this experience? Or what led me to this experience? Or what is my greatest desire right now? And then just allow the silence to happen. If you need, focus on some deep breathing and just allow the words to flow through. And I find after a while, after journaling this, I usually get down to a couple of sentences. Maybe it's 1 or 2 words, I am embarking on this because I want to focus on healing this thing. I want to connect with this person that's no longer with us. I've never done it and it sounds fun and I'm going to a party. While a lot of people that focus on psychedelics like to focus on the healing aspects or the consciousness expansion, there's lots of people that do it recreationally because they think it sounds fun as well. And it is not my job to judge why you choose to do these. It is not my job to judge if it's a good enough reason or not. I just like to ask people to figure out what it is that they want, because anytime we go into a new experience, if you don't have an idea of what you want out of it, then it's going to be very hard to keep that focus. And one of the things that I really encourage in all of the experiential-based work that I do is that people come with a focus. They come with a goal. Because when you have that focus and you have that goal, that's where the energy is going to flow. That's where you're focusing, and that's where inevitably you're going to get a lot more out. And so just focus on that. And once you have that focus, now that's what's going to keep coming in. And it works like that because that's the way your attention goes, right? And I don't just encourage this with psychedelic experiences. If you're going to take a trip, you're going to travel the world, you're going to go on a meditation retreat, you want to go do a new training program, self-help program, whatever it is that you really want to do, I always encourage goal setting and visioning. And a lot of the times I say set the goal and then don't focus on it, because the experience is going to be what the experience is. And for you, it's a lot of time, it's a lot of money, it's a lot of energy to do whatever new experience it is that you're going to have. And so really being able to say, this is why it's worth these resources, because I can never get those things back. And it's not like you can't earn more money, but you can never get time back. And if you've had a difficult experience, it's going to take a lot of work to get through that trauma, to get back to where you were. Or if you have this amazing consciousness expanding experience, that's amazing too. And it's good to know that's the direction that you want to go, because once consciousness is expanded, once you have a new way of looking at the world, you can never go back to having the old way of looking at the world again. And so that's really huge. And so once you have that vision, that goal, now you have to ask the question of, how do I want to play with this? do I want to put in some sort of ceremonial container? For me, ritual, rites of passage, ceremony are huge parts of who I am as a person and of the professional work that I do as well. I definitely love to take clients through rituals and rites of passage as the work that we do. And so for me, that container feels really good. For other people, that container does not feel really good. And realize that if you have a specific goal, depending on the psychedelic that you're engaging in, you have 4 to 12 hours to play around with it. And so how are you going to optimize that time? And so if it is to work on a specific thing, is there something that you want to have with you? You know, do you want to have pictures of that person? Do you want to have... I don't recommend having journals during the experience because psychedelics make writing very, very difficult. They make typing really difficult. They make interacting with electronics really difficult. So, you know, what is it? Do you do tarot? Do you want to throw a tarot deck in your backpack? Are you wanting to get some connection with nature? Okay, so now you're going to go backpacking or whatever. Do you have the supplies that you need to be safe in that environment? Because if you don't have the ability to be safe in that environment normally, psychedelics might make you think that you have that ability, but it's not going to give you magical abilities like that to withstand situations that you ordinarily do not have the skill set to withstand. And obviously, I need to mention this, and I'll talk more about this when we get to the actual experience itself. Never ever drive, operate heavy machinery, or do anything like that. Anything that could be potentially dangerous. And so now that you have this idea of what you want to do, now you can kind of craft the experience. Okay, we're going to have 8 hours, 12 hours, 6 hours. And the reason the times vary so much is it depends on what psychedelic you're going to be experimenting with. And we'll talk more about that in a different video. But so now how are you going to want to craft and sculpt this experience? And are you going to start somewhere and then end in that same place? Or are you going to start somewhere and walk somewhere? Again, don't think about driving. So a lot of people are like, oh, I think I want to go and spend the entire afternoon in the woods. In November, probably not a very safe idea because it's going to be too cold. So as I talked about in a previous video, psychedelics impact your ability to feel temperature. It's not that your body is any warmer, but your head thinks that it is. And so hypothermia can actually be a risk because you may think, I'm really warm, and so it's okay to be at high altitude at night with just a t-shirt on. You might feel comfortable like that, but it's actually going to be physiologically dangerous. And so keep that in mind that, you know, so you want to be outside all day. That's a choice. What clothing are you going to bring? Because you want to bring that jacket and you're not going to be able to drive. And so I like to look at these experiences when I have that visioning of the situation is, where am I going to sleep afterwards? And so that's a big question to ask. Where am I going to sleep afterwards? Or to ask, where am I going to be safe? And so those are really big questions to ask. So not only do you have, why do you want to do this, but how are you going to do this to get that maximum potential? And how am I going to do it safely? What gear am I going to need? What fun things might I want to take along? And then while typically psychedelics are a temporary appetite suppressant, what food am I going to take along? Particularly, what food am I going to take along that I'm going to have interest in eating? And so a lot of people find an aversion to food on psychedelics, and so I will often recommend to people something simple, like your favorite protein bar, maybe potatoes, boiled potatoes, hard-boiled eggs, something that doesn't need refrigeration, something that's very simple, very bland. Cookies, I know they're not very healthy, but you could actually make a high-protein, low-fat, low-sugar cookie, trail mix type cookie. Something like that could be good to take along. And so those are going to be things that you really want to consider. And then there's always the consideration of who are you going with? And so if you are doing anything in the backcountry, just like any other time that you do a backcountry trip, you want to have a trip plan. And you want to leave that with somebody. And so somebody knows where you are so that they can find you. And so that's going to be a general backcountry stuff. But you're definitely going to want to have that, especially if you're going to be on psychedelics. And if you are going to be camping, think about this in terms of planning your day. Setting up your tent before you decide to use any sort of substances is a good choice, because you don't want to be stuck in a really intense experience and trying to figure out how to set up that tent after dark. And so just think of some of those logistical planning things when you're thinking of planning your day. And then also, because psychedelics last so long, they disrupt your sleep. And a lot of people choose to take psychedelics in the evening time, particularly if we're talking about in the nightclub scene, a party, a rave, a festival, something like that. And so think about this. If you're going to be taking something that's going to last 12 hours at 10 o'clock or midnight, you're going to be up all night long. Another thing is, while they are not considered a stimulant, they do make sleeping very difficult. Very, very few people have the ability to sleep on psychedelics. And so now you stayed up all night, and so plan the next day, you still need 8 hours of sleep. You still need to eventually calm yourself down, go to sleep, and then wake up. And when you miss an entire sleep cycle, even if you do catch up and do 8 hours of sleep right after that, you're still going to be groggy at the end of that. So when you're thinking of planning your experience, think of the entirety of the experience, getting to where you're going, having your psychedelic journey, sleeping, resting, and then the recovery time. You don't want to have to be responsible for going to work or highly stimulating activities or things where you have to think a lot. And you just really want to give yourself that time and space to do that. And also to be able to fully come down and say, okay, I'm 100% sober and I'm not sleep deprived. Because we know statistically that driving while drowsy and driving while sleepy is also very dangerous. And so one of the things that I really want to impart upon you, or impart to you, is that we want to look at this and make it safe as possible. And look at this from the lens of harm reduction. And so how do you plan the entire experience? The other thing that you might want to consider is that typically on psychedelics, people have a difficult time interacting with other people, especially other people when they're not on psychedelics, and especially if you're in a location where this is an unusual activity. It may be a little bit easier to integrate yourself at a festival or a nightclub where there are other people that are playing with various levels of consciousness and sobriety. That might be a little bit more comfortable, but if you are going to be hiking, say, Rocky Mountain National Park, or just going up into the mountains for the afternoon, or going to your local park, who are you going to run into? How are you going to interact with them and navigate this in a way that honors your experience, but also honors their experience? Because they didn't go into the mountains to find somebody that's having a really intense experience. And intense experiences happen. But this is where the planning comes in to say, is this really the right space? Not just for me, but for anybody that I may encounter, because I'm going to a public space and I want to share this. Unless, of course, maybe you do have some private land that you might be able to use. And so that's a really important other thing to consider. And then the other thing you want to consider is hydration. Typically, again, on psychedelics, you don't have a strong desire to eat. You may not really have a strong desire to hydrate either. But hydration is really, really going to be important, especially if you're going to spend all day outside. A lot of people really like to spend time outside. Psychedelics have this connection with nature where you can commune with nature. Some people feel like they can talk to plants, they can talk to trees, they can talk to rocks and things like that. That's beautiful. And remember exposure. You want to really be safe with that exposure of put on the sunscreen before you head out, wear your hat, bring lots of water, and take care of the physical body, because the physical body has the same needs that the physical body always has, but the mind will lose track of hunger. The mind will lose track of time and things like that. And so you really want to make sure that those are not going to be issues that you're having during your psychedelic journey. So without further ado, thank you so much for checking in and learning about some of the just planning aspects of goal setting and things to plan for your psychedelic journey. So have a great day. Bye-bye.